Hello and welcome to the iPhone application development Hello World demonstration. This tutorial will take you through the entire process of creating your first project in Xcode. This is the third video. The first two were downloading and then the second one was installing the Xcode development toolkit. So this video is current as of December 2011, and which is the latest version of the development kit from that point. And there have been some changes in the previous kits, so that's why I'm mentioning it. So let's get started. First thing we have to do is start Xcode. This is the assuming that you've already got Xcode downloaded, and I put it in my dock after I installed it in the last video. Let me zoom in a little bit. When I open up Xcode, I get a screen that says Welcome to Xcode. And step number one of the instructions says to click on and create a new. And I created some instructions as a cheat sheet so you could pause the video and go back through the instructions if you missed a step. But click on and create a new project, and the type of the project is going to be a window-based application. If this screen does not come up automatically, there's a way of bringing it up. In fact, if you want, you can go into the Xcode menu and select File, New Project. A new project will bring up this screen here. Or if you click on New Project from the main screen, it's going to send you to the same screen. So we want to create a new project, and the new project type that we're going to create is going to be a window-based application. So click on the window-based application, and you can kind of see it up here. There's two sections, so you know you have the toolkit installed correctly when you have the iOS up here. If you click on some of the other options, you'll be creating non-iPhone or iPad types of applications. So, but this one worked just fine. So go ahead and click on the Choose button, and let's put a title in. I'm gonna call it Hello World. You can call it anything you want. I'm going to save in the documents directory. You can put it anywhere you want. It doesn't really matter. After you type in the title, go ahead and press save. And it's going to say it already exists. Okay, great. I'm going to call this a Hello World. Hello My World. Hello My World. I know that one doesn't exist yet. So let's see. Hello My World. So let's see. And Hello My World is a brand new app that just got opened up. You can see the simulator, and just to orient yourself a little bit to the Xcode environment, we've got a little menu bar up here for Xcode. As all apps, all Apple applications sort of run this way. And if you're brand new to the Mac and you're just doing this because you need to develop on the iPhone, you'll just have to get used to that. It's kind of different from Windows that the menu bar is up here. But in any case, we've got a simulator selection. I'm going to put the simulator on iPhone. It looks like we have an iPad simulator as well. And it's set for the 4.3, which is the most current SDK for the development environment. So I've got that set there. I'll kind of, just walk you through sort of the pieces here. We've got a few files. If we open up the class directory, the classes. I'm not going to go through Object-C programming today. Instead, I'm just going to show you Hello World. But it's not a bad idea to be familiar with, and to kind of take note of a few object-oriented concepts. One being the class, and this is actually, believe it or not, the .h and the .m are sort of like the .c++ and the .h, and they create the object in combination. So the .h is really a template. And you can kind of see in the code, we're looking at, sort of a template. And if we click on the files, it opens up the window down here. If we double click, it'll actually open up a brand new window. And you can look at it in the brand new window. It's kind of a little bigger. And then you can close the window. And the files are still here. And you can make this window bigger if you want. You can make it a little bigger. But all object files come in two packages, or you shouldn't use the word package. They come in two file combinations. They have a .h and a .m. And the .m is the implementation, the method bodies are created, and the class actually has functionality. That's like equivalent to the .c++. And then the .h is just the .h. It's a header file, specification file. But in this particular environment, you need both the .h and the .c++, or excuse me, .m. Now you have now I'm on the C++ thinking. if we open up some of the other, we have sources, other sources, which is essentially configuration files for the environment, for the framework. There's a main in here. We're not going to actually worry about any of this stuff for today's tutorial. We are going to look at resources, however. We have a main window to XIB, and when we double click on the main window XIB, this brings up what's called an interface builder, which is a brand new, I shouldn't say brand new, it's a different environment which it can be opened up, for which we're going to drag and drop things on a canvas and work with the interface. So I'll show you that in a few minutes. You can bring up the interface builder in a couple different ways. In fact, this is kind of confusing when you look at the project files and the way that they're grouped, because there seems to be a lot of mixing around. I mean, this file and this file are identical, but they show up in two different places. So, and then the other thing you can do is just click on the top here, and you can see all the files in the window here. So this is pretty much the base files that come with it. The packages and stuff like that I'll go through, the frameworks I'll go through in a different video. But okay, so we're ready to build Hello World without any more delays or chit-chat. We can open up the interface builder is what we're going to do in our first step. This is going to be an interesting Hello World. I'm going to put we're going to be able to have a little bit of interaction with this. So if we click on it, as I mentioned before, we want to really go into the interface builder. We can get through it by going through the tools and going through the X menu, or we could just simply double click on any XIB file, and here's the main window XIB, which is the one we want to edit. So I double clicked on it, and I'm going to wait a few minutes, and lo and behold, what comes up is I've got a main window.xib, which is the XIB package, if you want to call it a package, conglomeration. It's the information for which I'm going to use to build my interface. And so the first thing I'm going to do is kind of, is the fun part, essentially, is building the interface. The interface builder has several different windows associated with it. I see that this is sort of like a properties window, so like if I click on Hello World here, I can kind of see it has a window, doesn't really have very much else, and I can kind of click on these tabs up here to go to different parts of the Hello World. This is our main window that's going to appear to the users, and they put this little battery thing here to kind of show you this is the main window, which is great. So I'm going to close the window identity. Actually, let's just move the window identity over here because I'm not going to really use it right now. And instead, I'm going to go to Tools and open up the library. And the library has everything I need in it. It has all the classes, the objects, and things. You can kind of see I clicked on the objects up here with classes and media. These are all the things I'm going to drag to the desktop of my interface here. And I'm going to, it's going to try and make this window a little, I don't want Firefox. It's going to try and make that window a little smaller. Hold on one second. Minor little issue there. Hold on. Get back to the, whenever you lose a window, you can essentially just bring it up. There we go. I was going to say by clicking on one of the interface windows and it'll bring it up. Because we have Xcode running in the background, interface builder. This is the interface builder here, which is kind of a separate application that loads. So anyway, I was going to make this a little smaller, so I'm going to make that a little bit smaller, and so I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. And you can, you can make that smaller, get that out of the way. So I've got the window here, and what I'm going to do is put some stuff on the window. So let's take and drag 3 labels and put them on the window. And first thing I'm going is, where are my labels? How can I find anything in the library here? Actually, I could scroll through it and eventually find a label. Here's a label right here. Or I could filter it on the bottom and just go label. There's a label. So I'm going to take the label and I'm going to drag it to the canvas. And I'm going to put 3 of them on here, so go ahead and do that if you're following along. The reason why I'm going to do this is because I'm going to go Hello World, and then world's going to change. So if you double click on the label, it kind of turns blue a little bit. I'm just clicking randomly on here. If you can, go ahead and press the delete key. You can change what's in the label. So I'm going to say hello on this one, and this one is going to say world. If I can click on it correctly. Oops. Without deleting it. I'll put it back here. There we go. There we go. World. And then down here, this is going to be enter your name. Enter your name. Why am I doing that? Because I'm going to put a text field down here, which means I got to go find a text field. So I'm going to go text. Look at that. Lo and behold, there's a text field. I'm going to stick a text field down here, and I'm going to have the person enter their name. That's why I say we're going to make an interactive Hello World program. So I'm going to stretch the window out a little bit. And you can change the fonts if you want. You can make it bigger by going to the fonts menu and adjusting the fonts. I'm just going to kind of leave everything on its own. So what I want to do is, like, when the program is running, I need a button here. So let's put a button down here too. So I'm going to put a rounded, so select round rectangular button. I'm going to stick it right here. And I'm going to make my button a little big, actually. I'm going to make the button real big. That's a nice little button. Maybe I'll put it right here. I'm going to put a label on it. It's going to say press here to change name. I know it's probably a little excessive. You can go through and change the background color of the window and all the different properties of the window if you want, and I'll save that for you to explore with because that's pretty easy to find. But what I just did was I put 3 labels, I put a text box, and I put a button on the canvas. So I'm going to save this stuff so far. So I'm going to go save, and I'm going to exit the interface builder. So I'm going to just quit out of the interface builder, and I'm going to go back to my project. And my project here, I'm going to essentially now try to build the functionality for the different things. So what I'm going to do is actually, instead of here's a couple things I could possibly do. I could change the Hello World default classes and add some functionality to that. And add it to the .h file as well, or I could create a new class. And really, because this is a teaching kind of learning kind of video and we want to experiment with some features, let's create a new class. So we're going to use the action button up here on the top. It's kind of small, you can barely even see it, but if you click on actions and you go add and you select new file, you can put a class file in here. And what we're going to put in here is going to be an Object-C class file, which is kind of the default one that shows up. And the class is going to be subclassed from NSObject. Don't worry about the subclassing at this point. I just know that we're making a new class. I'm just going to add a new class in here. So I'm going to go next, and I'm going to call this class code. You can call it anything you want, actually, but you have to remember what you called it. And it's going to be part of Hello World. So I'm going to say finish. So now I've got inside a Hello World, I've got 2 classes, two files, and it doesn't really matter where they showed up. I mean, if I want to, I can highlight them and I can move them up if I wanted to. Here, change the order around. If you I was clicked in here when I selected the action to create the classes. I was clicked in here. If you were clicked in resources, your class is going to end up in the resource menu. If that's the case, I shouldn't say menu, in the resource directory. If that's the case, you can just drag them and put them in the class directory. It doesn't really matter where they are in here. It's not as picky as it's not as picky as the Android environment, actually. But they just happen to end up in here. So if yours didn't end up in the classes folder, go ahead and drag them into the classes folder, and you drag them, just by simply dragging like that. So I'm going to put this one back because it does. I'll put it back there because that's where it came from. So I put together some cheat sheet code so we don't actually have to type anything, or hopefully you'll have to minimally type something. And I'll try to make this as big as possible. But let's start in with the .h file. So in the .h file that I created, we're going to want to change the code in here to add some functionality, and the functionality is going to be for those buttons. And I took the liberty of putting the code into this file. So what we've done so far is just started Xcode, we created a new project, we selected a Windows-based project, we saved it, we went into the interface builder, we saw a bunch of windows that popped up, we found label, we dragged three labels, called it Hello World. And I put a little note in the instructions on the Command Shift Plus will make the fonts bigger, or you can use the menu to do it too. So you can go back to the library, search on the word text, drag a text box over. Also drag over a rounded rectangle button, which we put on there, and put something on there like press or OK. And then you can drag and drop, and put anything you want on that canvas, actually. And then select File, and then select Save, which is what we did to save the changes. And then the interface is pretty much done. So we went back into Xcode. We hit the Action button. I'm just making sure I followed everything so far in my cheat sheet, just so when I post it, I know it's correct. We selected Add, and then we added a new file. And then we made sure it was a Cocoa Touch. Well, it's actually the one that's selected by default. But if it's not selected by default, you could just check to make sure it's a Cocoa Touch class, which is what's used for the iPhone. And then we're going to click on and we're going to change the file name to, we changed the file name to code. We've saved it. We have code.m. We've got which is the class file, and code.h. Now we're going to select the two files, drag them over to the classes folder if they were in the resource folder. They weren't actually in the resource folder. They're going to be created wherever you happen to have the folder opened. So I didn't actually I had kind of purposely opened up the class folder, so they ended up in there automatically. But you can drag them over from anywhere where they get created. So double click on the Hcode file to select and open it up for editing, and then we're going to edit the code so that the end result looks like this. So here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to cut and paste it here because I'm a terrible typist. This is the contents of the code.h. So I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to get rid of what's here. This is the code. This is the code.h file. You see it here, code.h. And leave the import. We need the import in there. But I'm going to get rid of this here. I'm going to replace it with this code that I cut and pasted out of my cheat sheet note. And what is the code doing? Well, it's creating two IB outlets. What are outlets? Well, they're the connector links between the objects that are going to appear on that canvas. You remember those labels we drew? And the items that are going to appear in the code, for which we're going to have programmable actions associated with it. So we have an outlet called a UI label, and I called the label name label. And then there's going to be an IB outlet UI text field. Remember the text field I put in there? And so where it says hello world, there's two labels. We're going to connect the second label that says world to this name, so that when we type something in the text field, it'll change the name that it appears on the screen. And then we're going to have an action. So we have two labels, and we're creating an action, an IB action called click. Click is going to be the name of the action that we're going to use, and we're going to assign the action to the button. So it's going to receive the ID from the button on the canvas, and there's numerical IDs that are associated with it. We don't have to, actually, we're not even going to do anything with the ID, so we don't have to worry about it actually. But rather than that, we're going to send this click. We're going to create this event, and on this click action that's associated with the button, when the button gets pressed in, it's going to perform this action. But this is the header file, so the code for this isn't here. It is simply think of it like a prototype or definition. So these are defining the label field for the name and the text field, and also for the click event or click action. So this file is pretty much done. So, and I'll go over this, the code segments in future videos to tell you a little bit more about what's going on with that. But I'm going to save it. And now I'm going to double click on the M file, which is really, kind of a C++ file, or the implementation. And here's the implementation code. And I'm going to go back to my cheat sheet. And in my instructions it says to save your work. Let me make this a little smaller so I can read it. So we cut and pasted that. We put it in the code.h file. And you can pause the video and take a look at this. And unfortunately you have to kind of type it yourself, but it's really not that much typing. Save the work. Going to File menu, selecting Save. Now open up the code.m and then double click on it for editing. And then make it look like this. So I don't think I have to put the code.h in there because I think it's already there. So I'm going to cut and paste this. So I'm going to copy it actually. And then I'm going to go back to my Xcode. Yeah, I already have the import code right there. I don't need it. I'm going to paste. That looks pretty good. This is the implementation. I'm just going to make it, put some spaces in there, make it look good. And what is the implementation? Well, it's on the click event. On the click, it's going to take the name label and it's going to send it to, it's going to set the text of the name text field to the text that's in the text field. So name label is going to essentially be equal to, and don't worry about, this is Object-C, so don't worry about the syntax at this point. We're going to learn this in future videos. We're just primarily interested in seeing this thing work. Let's go to File and go to Save, and what we've just saved was the implementation of the activity of the click. So this is the click here of the IB action. So it's great. We've created the GUI items. We have just created the code for the 3 items of interest, 2 labels, or 1 label, 1 text box, and one click event associated with a button. So we can now make sure everything's saved. It's grayed out, so I know it is saved. And the instructions are going to tell us to go back to the interface builder. So go back to the interface builder, and then we're going to take and we're going to add this object to the list of files. We're going to select the object, view it in the inspector window. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. If it's not open already, we're going to go to Tools and open up the inspector. We're going to click on the I tab to inspect it, which is the far one on the, it's going to be the farthest tab on the right. We're going to change the class selection to code. We're going to click on the code objects, connect them, drag them, and then we are going to test it, and then we're going to be done with it. So let me go back through and do the fun stuff here. Alright, so we know how to get to the, or maybe we don't know yet. Do we know how to get back to that interface builder? All we got to do is click on the main window here. So we go back to the main window, and when we go back to the main window, we see this box here, this box of objects here, and we created, back at the ranch, we created the, we don't really need the library anymore. I can actually kind of get rid of the library. Do need this window here. We don't really need that one. Don't need that one in the background either. We need this one. We need this one. Actually, we do need the library. I just closed it too. Oh well. I'll put this guy over here. Kind of organize my screen a little bit, make it a little easier to demonstrate this. This is, I don't know if I'd call it tricky, but this is the part that usually trips up some people. So we're going to add an object to the main window, and the object that I'm going to add is that class, because we put those actions, we put, remember the code.m and code.h, we put the functionality in this separate class file that wasn't part of Hello World, but it's part of the project. So I'm going to open up the library again, and this time I'm going to drag an object over, and up here's an object here. So the object provides that template for objects controls, not directly available in the interface builder, so it's because it wasn't really part of the project. So I'm going to stick this over here. So that was pretty easy. So the library just allows you, it's kind of like playing a video game actually. The library allows you to drag stuff and add it to the project. So you just go to library and you find what you need, you add it to the project. And this is kind of a properties screen. If I click on this object here, it kind of brings it up in here. One of the things I need to do though is change this to code. And so I know I've got code. I created code in my project. That was that object I added. So I can add other types of objects if I want. And in this particular case, I'm interested in figuring out, well, the code is what I really want. We don't have to worry about anything else in here. Everything else is use the defaults. I'm going to be sloppy. I'm not going to set any names for anything. So if your screen wasn't on here, it didn't look like this, it was all empty, you have to press this I. So you have to click on the object and click on the I, which is the farthest tab to the right. And you need to change the class to code if you haven't done that already. And then click on this one here where it says, this is supposed to be a connector. It looks like, kind of looks like an arrow. And we're going to see how those arrows actually kind of work in a few minutes. And what we've got in this window, and this is what you should see in this window, if you don't see this in your window, and what you're looking at is the outlet, make this a little bigger so you can actually see it. Well, it's huge now. This is the new part. this is not going to show up in your window if you didn't put the code that I cut and pasted. If there's a typo in your code and you don't see this in the window, go back and fix it. Go back and see where the typo might be. Because these are the items: the name label, the name text field, and click, the received action, the click event. These are the three items that are going to be used to control these items over here. So this is the code for the GUI interface, if that makes any sense. So the tricky part, and I kind of alluded to it as being tricky, so I shall continue calling it tricky. It is sort of the tricky part. It's connecting. That's what they call connecting the items. So you're connecting, and you're using connector items. This is window connections, is what essentially looking at. It was because I clicked on the window, actually. When I clicked on the window, now I have the window connections that I'm looking at. Hello World app. My Hello My World app is part of the window connection item. So if I click on this item back over here, I can get back to these connections that are part of the code object that I created. So how do we connect the objects? Well, we can click. I'm going to start with the name first. I'm going to go with the text field. So this is the name. This is the text field. This is the event for clicking. This is a button, believe it or not. So I'm going to take this little, and if I put my mouse cursor over the little circle, the little circle turns into a plus, means to add it. So I can click on it, and I start dragging, and I see this blue line occur. I'm not pressing anything on the keyboard, and I'm hovering over this event. This is a label world. So I'm letting go of the mouse button now. And now I've got a name label that is associated with the label world. And the title on the label is called world from how I created it. And then I'm going to do the same with the name text field. So I'm going to click here and come down to this rounded style text field. And I'm going to release the mouse, and over here is where the connection is being made. So if I put my hover the mouse over, I can kind of see the two labels changing. If the functionality is not working for you and you're getting frustrated, try pressing the command or the control. Probably the control button on the keyboard is going to do it for you. I'm not pressing anything at all. Some of the SDKs work just with the mouse, and this is just the left, regular old first mouse button click. Some of the previous ones require the control button being pressed. If they're not working at all, there's a serious issue with the connection. And it's not the fact that you can't connect it, it's the interface won't let you connect it because there's a problem with the connection. So if these are missing, you don't see these in this window, there's a problem with the code you cut and pasted because that wasn't created correctly. So the button down here, this press here to change the name button, it's kind of a big label I put on the button, is the received action. So this one is the click. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the other one. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to release it. When I release it, I got a bunch of options because these are things that can happen when I click the button. I'm just going to do a touchdown. If I touch down on the button, this is the event. I could do a drag. I could do a drag exit and inside and outside, a value changed. But the touchdown is really the event. Because the touchdown is when you touch down on it. Either you can't see it, but I just put my finger on on my monitor, or you click it with a mouse or something of that nature. So now I'm going to kind of back out a little bit, make it a little smaller so I can kind of see what I'm doing, and I'm going to save. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go Save. And at this point, I have finished the entire application. And just to review a little bit, I went in, and you don't have to do it in this order. If you want to, you could just create these items first. You can create the code first. This is just exactly kind of like Android development. You can create all the code first and then do the GUI second. Here I kind of did it in between. I did the GUI first, and then I created the code, and then I went and I connected the code to the GUI. You're going to need to do the connection. When you do the connection, and the order that you create the GUI is totally up to you. So you don't have to create those GUI items first. I did it because I would have wanted to know, like maybe if I wanted to create 4 or more or 5 more and I want to have more actions. After I design the GUI, then I can go create the connectors for it, connect the code for it. And I'll be going over the code and how to actually, because we didn't really actually program anything in this video. We're just kind of using pre-designed code to begin with. Alright, so I can actually, because I've saved it, I can actually exit now. I'm going to exit out of the interface builder. I'm going to quit the interface builder here. And I'm going to cross my fingers and go back to Xcode. And I don't really have to save it because when I save, it's going to when I select here, what I'm going to select is build and run. When I select build and run, it's going to actually compile it for me or ask me to save it. And I'm going to switch it to I thought I switched this already. I'm going to switch it to iPhone simulator by default. I'm sure you could probably set a preference. So this always goes on to iPhone simulator. I thought for sure I had set that already, but let's see. So, and I can press build and run, and hopefully there's no errors. There's no errors. I see a big iPhone thing showing up on the screen. Here it is. Let me make my screen. Well, actually, it's okay. It still fits. My screen's kind of big. And I click in the box here. I can go here, say Barb. And I'm going to press here and Barb changed. So I can also use the keyboard. I can backspace and go, hello, nerd. We got nerd now. Hello, you. You. So you can kind of see that the application works, hopefully. And hopefully yours is going to do this too. And you've just created a pretty nice Hello World application. It takes input, puts it on the screen. We got a little event going on. So in the next video, we're going to start learning how to write the code, actually. And one of the things you might notice here, if you press the bottom thing on the simulator, it actually is kind of a true simulator. You can bring up like, you know, a web browser, you know, and you can actually see stuff on the screen. In fact, let me test this out. I'll put my website in there and see if it comes up, actually. Then I know for sure, because I know that my website's not programmed in here. Let me go in here, www.bhacker.com. If that comes up, I know this is live. It is live. Look at that. It is live. Okay, very good. So I've got internet access. It's not bad. I'm going to cancel. You can see I can run my application again. You know, hello me. Yeah, but it doesn't really do very much. If I want to clear this out, it's really easy. You just go to the simulator and you reset the content in the settings. So, you know, because here's the thing I get, and I get this all the time actually when I do Android testing. And not only does the Android emulator take twice as long to load, but it's got a bunch of old stuff on there from previous attempts, failures, broken problems, and it just gets kind of cluttered. So if you go in here and go reset content and settings and go reset, the simulator will actually reset back to a blank nothing in here simulator. And there's no way of shutting and closing down the simulator from the window, so you just have to actually kind of just go quit simulator. So that was the end of Hello World and your first project, and I hope it worked for you. If not, go back through the steps. I'll put this up here one more time and just make sure I didn't forget anything. No, it worked, so it must have gone through all the steps. Test, take a break. You just finished your first step. Here are the code pieces, just in case you're having problems and your test is not working correctly. This is the code that goes into code.m. This is code.m. All this is, you know, just, I don't know, you can't cut and paste it from the video, but hopefully this is big enough. Don't worry about the color coding. If you're having problems with the code working as you're typing it in, check for spaces and check for case sensitivity. It is case sensitive. That's a regular old dash, you know, just like a minus sign. It's not like two minus signs, it's just one. So. Alright, so hopefully you enjoyed the video, and in the next video we will go on to do bigger and better things with the iPhone, and we will actually start writing some code. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I hope your Hello World works for you.